Hi, I'm Ted Kofi and welcome to another video. This one is about something which is enormously important for everybody. It's about Agenda 21, and why it's important is that despite wherever you may live, this is where your country and you and I are headed in the years coming. I'll kick off with the old story about the three blind men who were asked to describe an elephant. One held it by its trunk and thought he was holding a long, thick rope. Another held it by its stomach and felt that the elephant must be a wall. And the third held it by its foot and thought, well, I'm obviously looking at a tree trunk here. But it illustrates perfectly how important it is to look at something in the round to perceive exactly what it is you're looking at. There's another anecdote which says that if you want to hide things from people, hide them in a book. Most people don't even bother to read the conditions of the apps that they download onto their mobile phones, which carry all their data, before they tick agree. Even when it comes to politics, where you're voting for the government that plans to run your life for the next 4 to 5 years, most people don't read their manifestos from end to end. Now imagine a document that's 300 plus pages long. That's what Agenda 21 looks like. And I'm almost certain that 9 out of 10 of us will never even look inside 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 pages of this document. So what happens? We leave the deep dives to journalists, and we expect them to read, mug up, analyze the information, and feed it to us in bite-sized chunks in their newspaper columns, their television reports, and sometimes people like me on videos like this. So there is the first problem. If you have completely uncensored media, which can say what they like, you will have a variety, a multiplicity of views and values which are analyzing what it is that you're looking at. It helps, as in the case of the elephant, to give you a rounded view of the upside, the downside, and the middle side of the subject that you're looking at. If, however, you live in a time, as I think everybody will agree that we live in now, where media, especially the mainstream, big media that most of us get our breaking and other news from, is coming to a confluence and singing pretty much and largely off the same hymn sheet, then it means we may have a problem because we won't see whatever it is that we're trying to understand in 2020 vision. So let's take a look at what Agenda 21 is all about. Before we do that, kindly hit the subscribe button at the bottom of this page. Great. So what does Agenda 21 itself actually mean? And before I go into that, based on the sources from the UN, I need to mention one thing. In all my reading around Agenda 21, I frequently came across the phrase conspiracy theory. And I feel that I ought to declare my interest in this. I'm on the side of humanity in this matter. I'm also hugely aware of my limitations of thought, past experience, even my age and ethnicity. All of these things should be factored into the things that I say. What I think is hugely unfair in the discussion on this is the dismissal of ideas with the label conspiracy theory, which I find hugely prejudicial to whoever is taking in the content, because it gives them a mindset of what is about to be said and makes them judge the information before they receive the information. Now, there are 2 points of view. The people on the left have theirs, the people on the right have theirs. And this is what they're saying. From the UN, first of all, Agenda 21 is a non-binding action plan of the United Nations with regard to sustainable development. It is a product of the Earth Summit, which was a UN conference on environment and development, held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil in 1992. It is an action agenda for the UN, other multilateral organizations, and individual governments around the world that can be executed at local, national, and global levels. This is a very comprehensive piece of work. Now, as a representative of the SPLC, which is a left-leaning non-profit, they say that virtually none of the outlandish claims about Agenda 21 are true. Yet, as with all such baseless propaganda, the hysteria over it has had the effect of poisoning any kind of rational discussion of the very real challenges we face, challenges that are essential to tackle head on in an increasingly complex and stressed world. Now, there's a body called the LSE in the United States of America, which is right-leaning, and this is their take on the situation. In recent years, the United Nations Agenda 21 policy has become the rallying cry for many in the Tea Party who believe that the UN, quote, threatens American sovereignty, unquote. This concern led to the introduction of anti-Agenda 21 legislation in 26 states in 2012 and 2013. Karen Trachtenberg-Frick, David Weinzimmer, and Paul Waddell find that conservative states were more likely to see the introduction of anti-Agenda 21 legislation. So some people feel so strongly about Agenda 21 that they're actually instituting legislation against the premises and the direction set about by the UN Agenda 21. So you can see straight away that the World Economic Forum, which backs Agenda 21, has itself come out to say that owing to the excesses of the capitalist way of life, we have degraded our environment and created rampant inequality around the globe. This doesn't can't be questioned by anybody who is rational. It's not a conspiracy theory to suggest the idea that our environment is being degraded and that inequality, health, wealth, even health inequality is running rampant through the world, as a result of which the WEF, World Economic Forum, believes that it is time to pivot away from the capitalist way of doing things and introduce a degree of central planning or collectivism, which is perhaps the kindest word I can find to support their view. Now, those on the right think that the Agenda 21 is communism on steroids, and these are some of the reasons that they worry about Agenda 21. Take the idea of what the nation state is going to look like. Many who criticize Agenda 21 suggest that it's going to lead to a one world government, a kind of centralized state where it's almost as if the UN is going to become the government of the world. Secondly, in its conditions or the plans for living zones, people suggest that if we follow Agenda 21, we will wind up living in urban, high-rise apartments where human beings are packed together. Those on the right call it stacked and packed in these urban high-rise developments. Of course, all the amenities are going to be made available by the state, like public transportation systems. There'll be far fewer cars because we're trying to protect the environment, and a huge de-reliance, if you like, on fossil fuels. Things like children won't be a problem, in a sense, because the state will provide for care of children literally from kindergarten all the way through to university. When it comes to property ownership, people say that the government will own all the property, or the centralized state will own all the property, from which comes a slogan, you will own nothing and be happy. There was a poster which went out about that, which I'll put on the front of this video, which suggested that actually there'll be something like a national wage, all debt will be abolished, people won't own their own homes anymore, and we will effectively be living in a classless state with two classes, if you like. One class will be the government class, and the other class will be we, the ordinary people, who basically live within the promulgations of government. Agriculture is going to be centrally controlled, and to do that, you're going to have to move people from who are currently residing on prime agricultural land into human habitation zones, so that either large corporations or state-owned corporations will own the prime land to provide the food which we will all eat. We will eat less meat. I've seen a couple of videos which suggest that because owing to the cost environmentally of rearing meat, we will be eating meat far less frequently. All of us will have meat perhaps once a week and no more. Our diet is going to become agrarian, it's going to be vegetarian. The key of all of this, the linchpin of all of this, is to protect nature, protect the environment, arguably without which you and I will not have life. Education is going to be re-engineered such that the kids that we have in the future will grow up with these sustainable attitudes, beliefs, and values to protect the environment. And of course, the rate of population growth cannot continue as it is right now. At the current rate, our population stands at about 7 billion. By the end of the 21st century, if we continue at the rate we're going, we will have 11 billion people, and that's going to put all kinds of strains and stresses on our resources. So, the right believes that this is taking away the fundamental rights of the human being to own their own property, their own home, their own land, and so on, and so forth. I remember that one of the things that stuck out in my mind about George Washington and the founding fathers of the American Constitution was that if a person doesn't own their own land, they cannot have any rights, because their rights are backed up by the property that they own. And you can see the argument, you can see why George Washington thought that way. If you do not own the country in which you live, you lose the right to rule it. Whether you live in Ghana, or whether you live in the United Kingdom, or America, or Canada, or anywhere in the EU, if you don't own your own land, you don't have any rights within it. There will be a national wage. All debts are likely to be cancelled. But once your debts are cancelled and you have the national wage, the question naturally arises, well, what authority will you have? You will be totally 100% dependent on the state, which will have the overview of what you and I do as citizens of whichever country or whichever area in which we live. That will also mean, of course, that if the state doesn't like what you do, sanctions could be applied. Now, I'm going to leave that there and get you to start to A, think about some of these issues, and B, research them yourself, because the train is headed in the direction of Agenda 21. I remember when I first heard about Agenda 21, I thought, I read the top line issues. I thought, well, this is all about protecting the environment. I ticked that box and said, count me in, sign me up. I'm a supporter. The problem is, it is in the route to and the delivery of Agenda 21 that many of the rights which we have taken for granted in the past, and many of the rights which I believe many of us want to keep for the future, are going to have to be shaken up quite considerably, and frankly, some of them removed. Now, you as an individual must think about what you want. If that's the kind of world you want to live in, if those are the kind of sacrifices you want to make for the benefit of a sustainable environment, that's a conscious decision you need to make, not one you get either bounced into or sleepwalk into, because these are fundamental changes of the way our children are going to be living as the 21st century rolls on. So that's just something of an introduction to Agenda 21, and I hope I've done enough to stimulate you into thinking, perhaps I need to go back and do a little bit of research for myself, because you are going to have to research it on account of the fact that the media you read everywhere centralizes on certain streams of thought. So whereas previously you could trust journalists to think for you, analyze the information for you, and give you bite-sized bits of information which you could use to make up your mind, I think everybody is going to have to become rather their own researcher and come to conclusions about what they want to do. Thank you very much for watching this video. It's a very heavy subject, but one which is so important that it cannot be put off by anybody anymore. Thanks for watching.